2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Good evening there. It is 9 after the hour. I'm Erick Erickson. This is WSB. The phone number 404-872-0750, 1-800-WSB Talk. Remember, the State of the Union tomorrow night. Not only will we be covering the State of the Union here live, we will have a post-State of the Union show taking phone calls from around the country. On all the various Cox Media Group talk stations throughout the country. So it should be a good long evening with the president. The one thing we can be sure of with the State of the Union is that by Friday we'll be talking about something else, as we always do with States of the Union, regardless of president. They just don't last long. It makes you wonder if they're even worth doing. This is one of the trappings of the Wilson administration, and I believe anything that Woodrow Wilson came up with we should probably abandon, including the president going to Congress to deliver the State of the Union as a speech instead of a writing. Now, we need to move to local issues here in Georgia for a little while. Is Netflix in Georgia going to get taxed? We've got to pay attention to an issue that is in the state legislature. There has been a commission to look at rural internetification. I say that because it used to be rural electrification, and now it's internetification in rural areas. And one of the things that they would like to do is get rid of the franchise fee that companies like cable companies and whatnot and cell phone companies pay the state, and impose a tax on your phone bill, on your cable bill, and potentially on your internet streaming services in order to cover the costs of internetifying rural areas, providing internet to rural areas. The Virginia Democrats, remember this past year, things did not go well for Republicans in Virginia. They now control the state house in Virginia by a single vote. They lost the state Senate. They don't have the governor's mansion in Virginia. And that single vote was a coin toss, literally a coin toss, or no, I'm sorry, that they drew a name out of a hat or a bag in order to decide who would win. And the Democrats in Virginia decided to tax Netflix. By a single vote in the Virginia House, that died. But Republicans in Georgia always embrace the ideas of Democrats elsewhere. Why? Because so many of the Republicans in Georgia used to be Democrats. And one of their ideas related to this taxation of phones and cable to internetify rural areas is to also tax streaming services. Now, thus far, I am told this isn't going anywhere in the state legislature, but we've seen this before, have we not? In the last 48 to 72 hours of the legislature, they rush it through. The odds are that, like casinos in Georgia, this is not something that's going to happen this year, but there's momentum building, and it's Republican, not Democrat, Republican momentum building for taxing streaming services like Apple Music and Spotify, Pandora, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, you name it. We should keep our eye on this, because Georgia Republicans tend to raise taxes. Remember when Sonny Perdue became governor? One of the first things Republicans did in a united House and Senate was raise taxes. They're going to keep raising. I mean, all of these guys, so many of them at least, were Democrats before they were Republican, and we need to keep an eye on this. Now, what about school choice in education? There is some legislation pending in the State House. State Representative Wes Cantrell has introduced it. And no one should object to this, but naturally teacher lobby groups are objecting to it. I want to walk you through it, relying in part on an editorial piece by Kyle Wingfield in the AJC. Before we get there, though, let's go check with Doug Turnbull, who's checking traffic on 285.
Sir, 613 of the Skycopter. Appreciate you breaking to us. We can tell you about 285. We'll break it in half on the outer loop, west and south. Still about 40 minutes from 400 around I-20, the West Expressway. That's exit 10. And your inner loop ride is the delays where you expect them every single weekday in the evening. 285 east and south. Starts slowing to Ashford Dunwoody. Doesn't break free until almost Memorial Drive, exit 41. Still a travel advisory 400 south. That right lane blocked at Sidney Marcus Boulevard. Veronica Harrell will have those delays here in just under 6 minutes, Eric.
Thank you, sir. As a side note, real quick, so we're interviewing all the gubernatorial candidates, and they start on Thursday with Brian Kemp, and then the next week it's going to be Hunter Hill, Michael Williams, Casey Cagle, and Clay Tippins. It took us a while to get Clay Tippins scheduled. He's the Navy SEAL running as a Republican. He will be on the 8th at 8 p.m. We will do a live audience. You will be allowed to submit questions. I'll ask the questions. You'll be allowed to submit questions. If you would like to attend the live lounge audience at WSB for Clay Tippins, the others are packed out now. We have room available for the Clay Tippins interview. You can text WSB to 345-345, and I will text you back a link to the Eventbrite page where you can sign up to be a part of the in-studio audience for Clay Tippin. Wes Cantrell has introduced House Bill 482. Now, I want to rely on a column by Kyle Wingfield here. House Bill 482 by Representative Wes Cantrell, Republican of Woodstock, is probably the most bulletproof piece of school choice legislation Georgia has ever seen. The bill would create educational scholarship accounts, allowing parents to take the state funding allotted for their child and spend it outside the public K-12 system for private school tuition, homeschooling materials, tutoring, or college. The latest version of the bill limits the initial size of the program to just 0.25% of all public school students. It prioritizes students with special needs, students from low-income families, students who are adopted or who are in the foster care system, students with an active duty military parent stationed in Georgia, students who have been bullied. It imposes tight financial controls on the program and some requirements on participating private schools. It requires participating students to take standardized tests annually with the results reported to the state and their parents. In short, it addresses every objection school choice opponents have ever raised, except for their objection to the very existence of school choice at all. Okay. Our Republicans in our state legislature, just as they are willing to raise taxes on people for the internet and what have you, tend to be the most hostile Republican state legislature in the nation when it comes to school choice. The governor tried for charter schools and tried amending things. The governor is one of the more pro-school choice people out there. But there are leadership forces in the state capitol who would scuttle any school choice amendment. Some of them because they are married to teacher lobbyists, some of them because they are married to public school teachers, and they have great hostility towards parents taking state money and using it to benefit their children as opposed to their own schools. That's a real problem. But it is a problem Republicans in Georgia need to address and deal with. I have not set up a call to action. I intend to. This is House Bill 482. That's the number by Wes Cantrell. I'm going to put it out on my Twitter feed right now here while I'm talking to you. I just linked opinion. If this school choice bill won't pass, perhaps nothing will. That's the piece that's in my Twitter feed. You can find a link to it so you can read the full column by Kyle Wingfield at the HAC. Folks, if a child leaves a public school and goes to a private school, the money that that school would get from the state because of that child goes away. So all this legislation would do is take that money and it would follow the child. So it would follow the child to a private school. It would follow the child to a homeschool setting. It would follow the child to college. There are financial restrictions restricting greatly what the parents can do with it, but still allowing the parents some flexibility. There are reporting requirements and other requirements on private schools should they take the child. There are standardized test requirements for the child. All of these things come into play here. And yet the left in Georgia continues to oppose school choice, and they have powerful friends in a Republican legislature willing to help oppose school choice. Republicans in Georgia continue to talk a good game about improving schools in Georgia, but they're not. Schools in Georgia aren't doing great. Go to rich areas, they are, but poor areas, they aren't. You would think Republicans in Georgia who believe in equal access and equal opportunity, who recognize that we can't guarantee an equal outcome, but we should be able to guarantee the equality of everyone getting a good education, you would think they would support legislation like this. And unfortunately, many of them don't. So if you go through this week and you see your state legislator ambush them, tell them to support West Cantrell's legislation. Republicans in Georgia always talk a good game on this stuff, and they always fail to actually implement any of the stuff they talk about. For once, they have legislation that addresses all of the concerns from the anti-school choice lobby, addresses them all, takes care of all of them. They should be able to support this. But don't hold your breath, because they're actually Democrats, just pretending to be Republicans.
Atlanta's Evening News with Erick Erickson. Breaking local news. Kirk Mellish's accurate and dependable 5-day forecast. And triple team traffic every 6 minutes. WS